So what we see here is, a process that happens in only women, the menstrual cycle, and it happens over the span of 28 days. And this is just a set time period that we've come to know after some time researching how the woman's body reproductive organs work. Every woman is different. Some women take longer in their menstrual cycle, some women take less, but 28 is a general consensus. So what we have here are the different concentration of hormones over the time period of the menstrual cycle, which cause many processes such as ovulation and the shedding of the the lining of the uterus, also known as the endometrium. These processes don't exactly happen on their own. They actually have hormones that stimulate these processes to occur, much like all other processes that maintain homeostasis in the body. So first we start off with the ovarian cycle in the follicular stage, when you have the primordial follicle. And what happens is that it'll go through a series of rounds where there's a lot of cells here. Once it makes its way to the primary follicle, there's even less cells. Then it'll go through a secondary follicle where the follicle actually grows around the oocyte. And then you have the Graafian follicle, which is the last stage. And then we have the thecal cells that surround the granulosa cells. And eventually only the granulosa cells, along with the single dominant oocyte, will make its way across and into the oviduct. But like I said, these processes don't exactly happen on their own. They have hormones that control them. So this whole process is started off by the FSH hormone, also known as the follicle stimulating hormone. So it will make this begin going through the cycle and finally be exited through there. But what's important is that while these cells are forming, we see that these cells will begin to secrete estrogen and progesterone, but mainly progesterone. And so this is why we see an increase in progesterone, and we also see an increase in estrogen, as we see here. So when the thecal cells and the granulosa cells make their way toward the membrane of the ovary itself, which is circular in shape, and the oviduct which surrounds it, ready to take in the oocytes, it can't really cross on its own. What happens is that there's going to be a surge of what we call the luteinizing hormone. Here we see a little surge right before ovulation, which is when the oocyte makes its way across the oviduct. So this is significant because estrogen, when it reaches levels 2 to 4 times higher than normal in the blood, it'll cause the LH surge, which will cause the lining of the ovary, a small part of the lining of the ovary, to break down and make a little entrance for the granulosa cells, only the inside of the follicles, granulosa cells, and also the oocyte to make its way across and into the oviduct, also known as the fallopian tube, for possible fertilization later into the uterus. So there's other hormones that also do this. Estrogen will maintain the lining of the uterus, the endometrium. It will make it thick in order to be ready for possible fertilization when you make a zygote, and then later a blastula in order to implant on the endometrium. We have progesterone, which will actually inhibit the anterior pituitary gland, which secretes FSH and LH, which caused this process to happen. Because the thing is that when we have an oocyte ready for possible fertilization, we don't want this to happen again, because it's going to throw off the hormone concentrations, and then you're going to have more than one oocyte in the uterus, which is really bad. Not bad, but it's just complicated. So it will inhibit it, and there's actually a negative feedback between these hormones. When you increase the concentration of estrogen and progesterone, you're going to decrease the concentration of FSH and LH, and this is basically the process of the menstrual cycle.